What do you guys think? Emily?
Well, in 2016, Republicans had that two-tier system where like the JV squad was debating each other. This entire debate was the JV. Yeah, it was the entire debate was the kiddie table, exactly because of what you said, Megyn, which is that Donald Trump has a 40-point lead, not a 10-point lead, a 40-point lead. In Iowa, according to the RCP average, she has about a 26-point lead. Basically, nothing that could have happened at that debate last night could have changed that margin, which is why I actually think Ron DeSantis' strategy to just sort of blend into the background was really smart. I think he realized he was the varsity guy on the JV team. Vivek realized that he was the freshman guy trying to make it onto the JV team. So he was dunking every time he could. Even if he missed, he's trying to show that he can jump. And with the other guys, when you have the former vice president of the United States, Mike Pence, just kind of looking like he's begging for airtime, trying to interject into every exchange, asking the moderators to go to him. It looked like a varsity guy going to the JV team and dunking on all the kids. It just was a really bad look, especially when the guy who's up by 40 points is not in the room. So I think if it's a win for anyone, it's a win for Trump and Vivek, who did exactly what he needed to do, which was generate head times. According to the New York Times, he got the second most time talking, which is pretty remarkable for Vivek there. So big win for him on his terms, but for everybody else, the only thing that could come out of last night was really a Trump win, and that's exactly what happened.
Mike Pence would not stop interrupting, would not stop talking, even when they'd gone back to him. Had I been the moderator, I would have handled that very easily. I would have said, you can continue talking, sir. It'll come out of your future time. You only get a limited time. So go ahead. If you want to use the remainder of the time you have on this one issue, go for it. And then I would have shut up. And then he would have shut up too. It was borderline rude because they were going back to him. They gave him his 30 seconds to respond, and then he would jump in anyway. And it was like, and then he doesn't understand the meaning of rap. It's like the double bell is there for the respect of the audience and the process and the number of issues that are important that you have to get to. It's just so rude. It's all about me, but I have more to say. So I'm going to blow off your bell after you've come back to me twice. Like, be quiet. Be quiet. Be respectful of the people in this room. It's not all about you. I was going to say, Smug, a feisty Mike Pence was not on my debate bingo card. Like, what? Did not predict that. But your overall take on how it went last night.
Yeah, I mean, I think he definitely realizes that, yes, he is a vice president. He needs to kind of have that kind of gravitas and demand that kind of respect. I think he could have maybe taken a better tack towards accomplishing that. But I do have to agree with the overall take. It ended up working in Trump's favor of not showing up, making it look like everyone else is essentially fighting for table scraps. And there really wasn't any kind of like a knockout blow where one of these candidates could consolidate the non-Trump vote and actually post, kind of a challenge to the dominance that Trump has already established. But seeing the interactions between all the various candidates was really interesting. There were a lot of surprises for me seeing it happen. And I think a lot of them realize how critical that debate is going to be. I don't think we're going to end up with a very long primary season of a bunch of debates. I think the field is going to winnow very quickly.
Vivek was a star, probably, I think, the star of the show last night because, many of us thought that the other candidates would spend their time going after Ron DeSantis since he has been the leader of the B team from the beginning, Trump being the only one on the A team. He has been going down. DeSantis' poll numbers have been falling, and Vivek's have been rising a little. But I would say, if you want to say who's got momentum, you'd have to put Vivek over Ron DeSantis, at least according to the most recent polls. So either the candidates saw that, or they have some internal polling that shows Vivek is a threat because they were all like, to Vivek. And that's good for Vivek. You want attention at the debates. If you talk more, that's better. If Nate Silver, he was posting that Vivek is rapidly becoming better known and that the Google search traffic over the past 24 hours among the leading non-Trump candidates shows Vivek with the biggest spike. People Googling his name, people Googling his age, whether you loved him or you hated him, that's good. That's good attention. For him. So I would say, you tell me, Emily, but I would say Vivek gained the most of the candidates who are out there.
Yeah, I would say the exact same thing, and especially because he's an unknown quantity. So when voters don't know you at all, I mean, so even like Chris Christie, Nikki Haley, definitely Mike Pence, these are known quantities with the vast majority of voters. Ron DeSantis, people know what they're about. They feel pretty comfortable. A lot of these people have been around for a really long time. Vivek is new to a lot of voters. So that means he has more room to grow. So he's already just barely behind DeSantis in national averages. So almost, getting to margin of error territory in some polls. And in that sense, if you also have a lot of voters who are just being introduced to you and you come out and put on a performance like that, I'm sure he turned some people off, but I actually think a lot of folks in the Beltway looked at Vivek and were like, he got crushed by Nikki Haley. He got crushed by Chris Christie. But to a lot of voters who are in the Trump camp, they might not be persuadable. They might not want to vote for someone else. But for a lot of people that are dissatisfied with establishment politicians, which is a good chunk of the Republican base, they're going to look at Mike Pence denigrating him for having no experience, which, by the way, is what every candidate did to Donald Trump unsuccessfully in 2016, and say, yeah, that's exactly what we like about him, because he doesn't sound like a typical Republican. So if that's his first introduction to a lot of voters, he did a good job. I agree. He gained the most of everyone.
Mm-hmm. Smug, who do you think gained the most of everyone?
Well, going to Vivek for a second, I think a question I have in my mind for him is, you see him show up outside the courtroom with like a petition whenever Trump has an indictment, essentially acting like a Trump surrogate. I want to know who's the person that's going to show up, to vote and is going to say, I'm picking Vivek over Trump instead of just voting for Trump. Why go the indirect route? I think a lot of Vivek's message is essentially just echoing, hey, like last night when he says Trump's the greatest president of our lifetime, it's like, okay, well, then why are you running against him if that's the case?
Yeah,
it seems like he did a great job, then might as well just have Trump. So I really want to see what kind of differentiation there is in the minds of any voters of why would I vote for Vivek over Trump if I like Trump as the best president ever. I think there was a lot to gain, actually, surprisingly, by Ron DeSantis, because Vivek's surge in the polls came right before the debate. So all the crosshairs from the other candidates were on Vivek. Ron DeSantis, most people thought someone's going to try to, knock him down, take over. He kind of got to blend into the background and watch everyone else go after Vivek. So that helped him a lot. He didn't make any kind of like a major mistake. There were all these stories about the super PAC had released this memo for what he should do. So, he definitely had a lot that he was probably thinking about, like, am I saying something that was on that memo? Now all these journalists are going to point it out. But by just blending into the background, I'd say he served himself best.
All right. Now, what about who lost ground last night? I mean, who do you think lost ground, went in and, better off than they emerged, Emily?
Yeah, I think it's a really easy answer, and that would be Tim Scott, somebody who has a lot of money and resources behind him, who has put in a big ground game in Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina, and flubbed basically every major opportunity he had to make his mark in that debate. There are a lot of donors behind Tim Scott.
Sorry, keep going. Yeah. I'm so enthusiastic about your point, but I'm like, what's happening now? Where is he? Keep going.
I was going to say, he's so talented as a politician. Nikki Haley also, by the way, is very talented as a politician, and she made the most of a lot of moments that got tossed to her. The best that she can do is a kind of never Trump Republican candidate in a voter base that's not super open to that, but just sort of theatrically, she did a good job seizing some of those moments. And Tim Scott did not. He has a lot of money behind him. A lot of big donors really were putting their hopes on Tim Scott. And if you want to have a chance in a field where Donald Trump's up by 40 points, DeSantis is even up in Iowa, we're close to him in any poll. If you want to have a chance, it has to be in these debates. It has to be in these moments where you're making a huge splash. And he didn't come anywhere close to that once last night.
Smug, I know a lot of very well-off Republican donors, a lot of them, and they've been asking me and talking in social circles for a while about Vivek and Tim Scott. Who's most likely to be Trump's VP out of those two? And for a long time, they've been saying it's got to be Tim Scott, right? It's got to be Tim Scott because Vivek just wasn't as well known and they didn't have as much buzz. I think after last night, if the race is to be Trump's number two, Vivek surpassed Tim Scott easily.
Yeah, I mean, David Sachs actually recently just hosted Vivek at his home in LA for an event. So I think a lot of the donors started seeing that Tim Scott has been essentially in witness protection for the past couple months. You haven't seen him in public much. And then in the debate last night, just solidified that in everyone's minds. He disappeared. It didn't seem like he was even that interested in trying to make a mark. and actually compete for the nomination. So he lost the most ground in my mind for sure.
National security experts are warning our aging power grid is more vulnerable than ever. January marked the third time a power station in North Carolina was damaged by gunfire recently. Authorities are now checking our grid for vulnerabilities. Imagine having a blackout lasting not days but weeks or months. Your life would be frozen in time right at the moment the power fails. That's why having your own solar power is more important than ever. Listen to this. With the Patriot Power Generator, you get a solar generator that does not install into your house because it's portable. You can take it with you, even use it inside, but it's powerful enough for your phones, your medical devices, even your fridge. And right now, you can go to 4patriots.com and use the code MK to get 10% off your first purchase on anything in the store, including the Patriot Power Generator. You will also get their famous guarantee for an entire year after your order, plus free shipping on orders over $97. And a portion of every sale is donated to charities that support our veterans and their families. Just go to 4patriots.com and use code MK to get 10% off your order. 4patriots.com. Use code MK to get yours today. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.